Welcome to the City Council meeting of December 21st. If you could please rise if you are able and pay attention to the invocation to be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilman Dobler.
Let's bow for a moment of prayer. Lord, bless all gathered here tonight to undertake the business of the city of Topeka. As we prepare to celebrate the birth of your Son, Jesus Christ, watch over those who find it difficult to find cheer in this season. Please watch over the mayor as she prepares to lead the governing body, and city manager Brent Trout as he embarks on a career in a different community. Both of them have made a positive impact here. Help us as a council to make wise decisions tonight that will lead our community to a better tomorrow. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We now proceed with the roll call.
Mayor De La Isla,
Here.
Council Members Hiller,
Here.
Valdivia Acala,
Here.
Ortiz,
Here.
Emerson, Padilla,
Here.
Nager,
Here.
Dobler,
Here.
Duncan,
Here.
and Lesser.
He's here. He's online.
Here, sorry.
We have 9 present.
9 being present, we have a quorum. At this point in time, we proceed to the service recognition. City manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I think at this time, if you could come forward. Deputy Mayor.
Due to budgetary constraints, we couldn't get much more than
The base.
City Manager, if you join me.
Thank you.
Mayor, it's hard to put into words how much you've done for this city, and how appreciative we are for what you and Brett have done together as a team. Get her in the meeting.
Yes, I'll go.
And we got to visiting and talking about how we would like to give you a small token of our appreciation, but when the word plaque came up, I said, no, plaques just aren't it. They gather dust, they end up on a wall, and then eventually into a box somewhere. And I think it's appropriate for the kind of person that you are, so full of life and color, that we wanted to give you something that really stood out, that would be centerpiece of your home. And so on this base, it says to Mayor Michelle De La Isla, in appreciation of your outstanding and dedicated service to the citizens of Topeka from January 2018 to January 2022. I'll hold on to this while Brent, I'll take the microphone and then you can go ahead with this.
Wow. Thank you.
You're more than welcome. It sits on top. It was specially made just for you. It's a one of a kind, and I hope that when I get to visit your home, I'll get to see it in a prominent place.
You will. You will. Thank you. Don't go anywhere. Mike, surprise! Oh my gosh!
Fun meeting you, Mary.
Nobody expected this. No, on a serious note, Mike, it's been a privilege to work with you. A little bit of flavor for our community so that you understand how deep Mike and my relationship goes. Mike was bold enough with his wife Ronnie, because we are, all three of us were part of Mana National as a board member. We drove from Topeka down to Houston in a car with my daughters, eating nothing but jerky along the way. And we did not kill each other. We actually became very close after that experience, and we already were. When I decided to run for council, it was really interesting because Mike was also thinking of running for council. And Mike looked at me and he said, you know what, no, you need to do this, and I'm gonna support you. And I will never forget that, Mike. So fast forward, Mike decides to run for council, and it's like, heck yeah, right? It was easy. It was easy to support a man that has integrity and honor and has demonstrated it every single day of his life in this community. And if you don't know, because you were not there, you might have not heard the beautiful story of a kid that grew up in Oakland. And they used to drive by the houses where he lives now. And who now looks at his wife and says, did you ever think that we could make it happen? So Mike, you are the reflection of what happens in Topeka. When good people with good hearts, no matter their color, socioeconomic status, work with their heart for their community, they're able to achieve great things. Thank you for your example. Thank you for your family for raising such a phenomenal man. And thank you for Ronnie for finishing shaping you up. So, on behalf of this council, thank you very much, and from your city. Thank you.
I appreciate all your kind words, but I have to tell you that running for elected office is something that if you do it right and for the right reasons, is extremely humbling, because it makes you think of the things that people think about you when you've never thought of them about yourself, and are so grateful for the support that comes your way. So thank you very much, Mayor. It's been a pleasure to be your friend and a member of the governing body while you were the mayor. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We now proceed to the appointments. If the clerk would read.
Item 3A is a board appointment recommending the reappointment of Kelsey Savage to the Topeka Tourism Business Improvement District Advisory Board for a term ending December 31st, 2023. Item B is a board appointment recommending the reappointment of James Parrish to the Downtown Business Improvement District Advisory Board for a term ending December 31st, 2023. Item C is a board appointment recommending the reappointment of Robert Bausch to the City of Topeka Board of Electrical Appeals for a term ending December 31st, 2023. And item D is a board appointment recommending the appointment of Kelly Magerkurth to the Topeka Sustainability Advisory Board for a term ending December 22nd, 2023.
We have heard the appointments. The mayor does not vote on this matter. What is the pleasure of the governing body? Councilman Dobler moves approval. The Mayor-elect Padilla seconds the motion. Do we have any comments or questions with regards to the appointments? Seeing none, we proceed by voting.
Council members Hiller,
Yes.
Valdeva Alcala,
Yes.
Ortiz,
Yes.
Emerson, Padilla,
Yes.
Nager, yes. Dobler,
Yes.
Duncan,
Yes.
and Lesser.
Yes.
We have 8 voting yes.
8 having voted yes, the motion carries. We do have Mr. Bausch, and we have Kelly also here. If you could please rise so that we could recognize you. Yes. Let's celebrate you. So citizens like you who give up your time, our community is able to do the work that we need to do. You are an integral part of making sure that our community is just, that it continues working together with all of our citizens engaged. So thank you. I appreciate your service, and so does your city. We now move on to presentations. Another awkward moment. At this point in time, I would like to invite Dr. Tiffany Anderson to the podium.
Good evening, and thank you so much for coming right up front. That saves us a little bit of time here. All right, and Dr. Gray should be somewhere close by, and we're going to ask that you open this. As opposed to having it in a bag, several young people thought it would be nice to wrap the gift, so it is wrapped. And so as you open that, I will say a few comments. For what you have in front of you, we also have little ornaments, but in my rush, I left them, so we will deliver those tomorrow to your offices and to each of the city council members, and the artwork inside of the ornament that you get tomorrow will be from Jardine Elementary. And it says, students first, working as a team. We thank you for working as a team. She's almost done opening that. So we will share with you. We just wanted to take the time at this meeting to thank you. Thank you, the city council, but also to thank the mayor. The students collected various photos, and I asked them to share what they felt was some of the most memorable moments. And they had pictures from the first week after you were elected, coming to Jardine Middle School. There were students who had on their phone photos of you touring the vaccination clinic. There were young people who had on their phone pictures of you promoting and sponsoring our students, our Hispanic young ladies who didn't think they would have an opportunity. There were so many photos, we had to pick and choose which ones to put in that collage. If we can, Mayor, turn that collage around so others will see more photos than what we could fit. We started with the small frame, and the frame just kept growing and growing. So Mayor De La Isla, we thank you. Often in your speeches, you often say, I was here for such a time as this, actually a scripture from Esther for those that may not know. And so I will tell you, your courage, your leadership, your kindness, your compassion is a model of excellence that has changed generations beyond what you or I will ever know. We love you, and we thank you for your leadership, and we thank you for your love to Topeka Public Schools. I know we're on COVID.
Guys, I've already reapplied makeup 3 times today. And everybody from the HRC. Hi.
Oh, it's okay. It's working now. I just need to.
I believe this one goes to me this time. I'm not entirely sure how I get to follow the rest of these folks, so I will do my best, being the B team speaker here. So, so good evening, Madam Mayor, City Council members, and the public. I appreciate the opportunity to speak on behalf of the Topeka Human Relations Commission as their Vice Chair and present the 2021 Stephanie Mott Award to Mayor Michelle De La Isla. The Human Relations Commission Stephanie Mott Award recognizes outstanding individuals living in Shawnee County who exemplify the extraordinary life and work of Stephanie Mott. Stephanie Mott was a local transgender activist who fearlessly advocated for those within our community who were disenfranchised and less fortunate. To put it another way, she was a voice for the voiceless. Every year, the Topeka Human Relations Commission honors her memory by recognizing another community member who stands ready to continue this important work. Mayor De La Isla has a long record of serving Kansas families in the nonprofit, private, and public sectors, and her journey was marked by many obstacles. She overcame poverty, homelessness, domestic violence, and cancer, all while raising her family as a single parent. These difficult life experiences have shaped her to be the extraordinary, vocal, and committed community advocate she is today. Mayor De La Isla's tenure in public service is distinct in its focus on economic development, equitable achievement, infrastructure improvements, and supporting diversity. For example, under her leadership, Topeka has become a more open and inclusive city
passed a non-discrimination ordinance, and is working to make the community even more equitable. While Mayor De La Isla certainly could not accomplish everything on her own, her unique vision for our community has seen us through to better times. This is how she embodies the legacy of Stephanie Mott. The Topeka Human Relations Commission is proud and honored to present the 2021 Stephanie Mott Award to Mayor Michelle De La Isla. Please join me in congratulating my friend.
Okay, if I may add just one thing. So I wanted to mention that when Mayor Michelle De La Isla became mayor, our MEI index for now I'm forgetting what's Municipal Equality Index was at a 35. And I know this was in the news recently, but I want to emphasize that now we're at a 93. And given some of the history here in Topeka and some of the things that it's known for, that's big that happened under her leadership. And again, she didn't do it alone, but that's a big deal. So that's part of the reason that I chose to nominate Mayor De La Isla for this award. And it was funny when I texted her and said, I think I'm gonna try to nominate you for this award. I just gotta make sure I can. And she said, I don't want any awards. I want my city to be more inclusive. And that is, to me, exactly who she's been since day one. And so we wish you all the best, but of course we're sad to see you go. But I know we're in good hands as well. So thank you for everything.
All right, so let's change the pace. So Jennifer is one of my best friends, and our friends last night were saying, you know what you guys should do? Because everybody in the community doesn't know how crazy you are. You guys should start meowing at each other. So if you guys heard me, I was like, meow. So he's like, yeah, there you go.
It's a love language.
It is. It is. So this is what I love to do, which is recognize leaders in the community. I would like for the COVID-19 response team to stand up and to please join me up front. Yes, please come forward. Yes, up here. Gretchen, I don't know what you're going to do with that camera, but give it to somebody else because you need to be up here. Yes. So, thank you, Jennifer. Yep. Jennifer's a professional photographer. You can join us.
I'm more comfortable with this than I am with the microphone. So I want you guys that are at home to take a look at the individuals that are all around you. And while our community was in peril, and maybe you saw Dusty and myself and Dr. Pezzino speak in front of the camera, and at one point it switched over to Dr. Locke. The reality is that it wasn't us alone. What people don't understand, and I don't think that I could ever quantify the amount of hours that all of us put living in a basement at the county offices. And there's a lot of laughter because, I mean, this community will never understand the depth of gratitude that they owe each and every one of these individuals. Molly is not here, but Gretchen and Molly would figure out a way that we could get together all of the communications individuals all across the community to make sure that once we had information, we were able to get it out and get it out seamlessly. Aaron, for a while, was a person running emergency management and having to deal with everything at the same time that we were dealing with the COVID pandemic. And there were scares of tornadoes in the middle of that, you remember? I mean, it was just like, please God, no. This man here, that you almost never hear from, is the funniest, most awesome individual that is an encyclopedia of everything that is happening at the state level with regards to emergency management, with regards to hazard management. If you want to know anything that's happening at the state legislature, you know what? Nelson Castile will tell you what happened at the city meeting, at the county meeting, at the state meeting, at the federal meeting. And then he'll give you a summary every single day that is critical for you to lead. You're essential. All of you are.
You came into the team afterwards and you helped taking Esther's place, right? And ESF8, Esther is not here, helping with all of the supplies. When the community was trying to figure out how to get volunteers, these two ladies here, Carolyn was working to ensure that community members from the city that were trying to figure out how to get engaged could come in to help answer all of the calls of our citizens in the middle of their anxieties. Brenda, you see this woman right here? She's a teacher. And not only is she a teacher, but she took it upon her shoulders with another small group of people to make sure that we had a COVID fact hotline. That anything that was a lie was being cleared up. When Dr. Betzino was in the middle of the heat of everything, one of the things that we employed was that we started bringing together superintendents. We started bringing together churches. We started bringing together other groups of the community that nobody knew that was happening. And it got so heavy that we ended up bringing in Dennis Cooley, who's a pediatrician, so that he could be the contact specifically for all of the superintendents. So that all of our superintendents in Topeka, Shawnee County were able to have seamless information every single Wednesday at 9 in the morning, right, Derek? Derek, who has been amazing, joined the county, and he and Craig are like the dynamic duo, right? Because they do the operations aspect. So everything from setting up a clinic, figuring out how we were going to get vaccinations out into the community, everything from figuring out how we were going to do the logistics for when we were receiving things, what was the cold chain, how we were going to make it happen. Let's talk about the trends. Ask Craig about the trends. Because Craig can give you like a bar chart of every single thing that was happening in our city and in our county. Dr. Betzino, yes, applause. Because this man right here, and I lose nothing by saying this, had to deal with the attacks and the disrespect of individuals in our community when he did not deserve it. And I am sorry that you dealt with that. I am sorry that you dealt while we were trying to save people's lives with calls like Dusty and I have a tick right now over golf. Because while we were trying to keep people safe, we're like, can we play golf though? And it was just like, we don't know enough about the virus. We don't have any vaccines, but we had to deal with that. And while he was trying to advocate to keep people safe, at the same time that, make no mistake, the economy was equally as important, he stood tall and he always did what was right. Dr. Betzino, thank you for your service to the community. Luis Estrada was my Spanish-speaking buddy because I would talk in the press conferences in Spanish, but there were still people that were not watching the press conferences, right? So then we started to figure out how Luis and I could just like amplify that work, and Luis was just like this magician. He would go like all of the places and would figure out ways that he could communicate with people. And we would find out if there's a place that was open that wasn't supposed to because maybe they didn't understand the language, and then we would send Luis as the beacon of bad news or good news, depending on how you want to see it. And he's done this as a volunteer. So I want you to take a look at Luis Estrada here, who's a hero in the city of Topeka. When Dr. Betzino stepped down and stepped up and kept on working with KHI, we ended up having the blessing of having Dr. Locke, another great doctor in our community who has devoted all of these months, and still is, by the way, to dealing with the pandemic and working with the county. Craig, I talked about you. Morgan, you also were supportive. Morgan, right? Zach, my bad. You were post-Michelle team, so I'm sorry. Tell us what you did, because I was not there.
I was the director of testing.
Oh, wow. There you go, director of testing. Just a little job. How are we going to get people tested in the community? But yet again, you would have never imagined that we had a whole human being dedicated to trying to figure out how you are going to make sure that you could get your testing. And then, Betty is just such a phenomenal individual. I mean, this woman, my gosh, if you want to know anything about how to use money legally, effectively, morally, this is the a woman that you would call. There were times that I was just like, hey, Brent, why don't you call her? Just so that we could make sure, not that Brent or our team was doing anything wrong, but it was just like the partnership between city and county to make sure that we were working together. And you don't see here the 3 county commissioners, that even though we disagreed on many times, we still were working for the betterment of our community. The other person that you don't see standing here is Dusty Nichols. And Dusty Nichols was our incident commander before Teresa took over. Dusty and I would work hours on end. It was to the point that like something changed and people don't understand. And every time that we have to do a policy change, we would all have to get together. Betsino would work on the language for medical stuff. Then Dusty would send it to me and we would start editing it. Then we would send it back to them and then we would send it to the commission and then we would send it all around the place. That man had to, in the middle of a very public time of challenge for himself, after losing the love of his life, had to deal with the losses, significant losses in our community. The sacrifices that each of them, I'm sure that each of them can tell you a story of the nights and the times that they did not spend with the people that they loved. This community owes them a debt of gratitude. On behalf of the city of Topeka, I love you all, and I thank each and every one of you for your service to the city. It is my pleasure to present you with the mayoral coin for your service.
Sure, I would love to. Yeah. Not sure why this came to me, but so first off, thank you very much. I'm going to speak on behalf of us, whether or not it's appropriate or not, but thank you because the work that you dedicated to the COVID-19 response and recovery team was integral. And I think of all of the press conferences that we had to do and the ability for you to help get our message out to those who may not have been able to receive it appropriately. That spoke words and was just amazing. So thank you so much for your support and everything that you brought to the team as well. So hopefully you're walking out with one of these as well, you know. So, but really, I think, you know, we're at a point right now, and we're not done. COVID-19 is not over yet. And so I think if we look at it right now, the mitigation measures that we have been talking about from the beginning, you know, wearing your masks, now that vaccines are available, getting vaccinated and getting that booster is so important, especially as we get into the holiday season. So I strongly encourage people to do those personal risk assessments as they're going out into the community, really taking care of themselves and their families, getting tested. Know before you go. Go get a test before you come to these family gatherings to protect yourself and your loved ones. Wash your hands. You know, it's so basic, but really, you know, thinking about that, washing your hands before you move about, and wearing a mask. I mean, that is so important to cut down the transmission. And so we appreciate all of you. Thank you very much. We appreciate you very much, Mayor. Thank you so much.
All right. All right, we'll give it a second so that people can exit the chambers. Thank you. And needless to say, as they're vacating, a huge thanks to the council that also stood side by side with this community every step of the way, and our staff members as well, because this was not the job of just those who you saw standing there. With that, we now move to the very sexy part of the agenda, which is the consent agenda.
Item 5A is a resolution introduced by City Manager Brent Trout authorizing initiation of eminent domain proceedings to acquire easements for a street and utility improvement project at Northwest Tyler Street, Lyman to Paramore, project numbers T-701019.00 and 701034.00. Item B is a resolution introduced by City Manager Brent Trout authorizing initiation of eminent domain proceedings to acquire easements for a street improvement project at Southwest 12th Street, project number T-701016.00. Item C is a resolution introduced by City Manager Brent Trout authorizing initiation of eminent domain proceedings to acquire property for a street improvement project at Southeast California, 37th to 45th, project number T-701021.00, and item D is an ordinance introduced by City Manager Brent Trout removing certain real property from the Dynamic Core Redevelopment District.
We have heard
Sorry, my apologies. And item E are the minutes of the regular meeting of December 14th, 2021, and the applications were emailed out this afternoon to the governing body.
We have heard the consent agenda. What is the pleasure of the governing body?
Move for approval.
We have a motion for approval. Do we have a second? Councilwoman Nager makes the motion. It's seconded by Councilman Dobler. At this point in time, we proceed by voting if there's no questions.
Council members Valdivia Acala,
Yes.
Ortiz,
Yes.
Emerson, Padilla,
Yes.
Nager,
Yes.
Dobler,
Yes.
Duncan,
Yes.
Lesser,
Yes.
Mayor De La Isla,
Yes.
and Councilmember Hiller.
Yes.
We have 9 voting yes.
9 voting yes, the motion carries. We now move on to the action items. Action item A, if the clerk would read.
Item A is approval of amendments to the governing body rules and procedures.
City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll turn this back over to Councilmember Duncan so that he can carry this item.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll try to keep this to 50, 60 minutes as I explain what we've done here. This came to the council several times. There were some mini discussions, got referred back to the Policy and Finance a few times, which is myself, Councilmember Nager, and Councilmember Emerson. Through that period, we heard comments from other council members, both in the public meetings and occasional email that said, hey, have you looked at this or thought about this? And we tried to incorporate, and I think we did nearly everything. So I just really want to make 4 points about this document, like kind of 5. But the first is, as I said to a couple council members, it's a living document. And I bring that up because we know we probably didn't catch everything, and there's probably still a few questions that some members have brought up to us. And sort of our response was, you're not wrong, but we'd like to pass what we have in front of us if we're all good with it, and then with a promise that we'll start working on those other things next year, since this document is sort of an always living thing. The second thing is I'm not going to go through every change we made. The majority of them, truthfully, were very clerical in nature, either bringing language more in line with Robert's rules, which is what we use, or more in line with League of Municipality guidelines that they use as laws change, or we want to make sure we're in compliance. And some of it was just, hey, why is there this word there and we never corrected it, let's correct it now. That did make up the majority of it. So here are the 3 things the third thing is this. Here's what it does not address. And we did talk about this multiple times. This document does not address how this council and governing body want to handle public comment moving forward via electronic means. We did talk about it, but our thought process was that needs to be a larger discussion by this entire body as opposed to the three of us sort of telling you what we think it should be. And so what we would prefer to do is put it on an agenda for a discussion in the new year, and then this body can either make a determination of what direction it wants to go, yay or nay or whatever's in between, and then if it wants to send it back to the Policy and Finance Committee to sort of make up some rules to bring back that then can be considered, that's fine. But we did not feel it was our role at that time to make that policy decision or bring it forward for the entire governing body. So how this council wants to handle Zoom testimony and public comment in the future is not in here, but we believe it needs to be brought forward in the next 30, 60 days as we get into the new year. So what did we do that you care about? Mainly two things. The first is this would now allow for a council member to attend virtually 3 meetings per year. The process would be you got to contact the mayor, the city manager, and the clerk, minimum 24 hours in advance so that staff has time to hook up everything if they need to, and just say, I'm using one of my 3 times and I'm zooming in. Beyond the 3, we went back and forth on that number. What should the right number be? Is there a magic number? I won't say there was a lot of science to 3. We did very much balance the idea that one of the roles when we run is to show up to these meetings, right? It's 3 times a month, it's 12 hours a month. Our goal is to show up at these meetings in this room. So we did sort of want to retain that important thing, but also understand that we have this technology, and so council members should, things happen, and if you don't have to take an absence, here's 3 opportunities to do that. So we settle on 3, and that's what we've brought forward with you tonight. The second thing is we have allowed committees to now meet in whatever form they want without a number on it. So every committee could be a hybrid now of people zooming in or not zooming in. Our thought process there was we do view those committees as different than this meeting, but we also hope that would allow some of these committees who sometimes struggle to meet schedules and would like to meet a few more times or have more to do to actually be able to have some flexibility in doing that throughout the year. So hopefully that will encourage these committees to be able to meet a little more often and do some of the work that we know they're trying to fit in. So those are the 2 things that are the biggest changes in this document from everything. Outside of that, it doesn't move much beyond how we were operating before COVID hit, if anyone remembers that time. So long ago. So, and by that I mean everyone would still be required to be here, including staff, and we did not address whether staff can do presentations via Zoom. Again, we think that's similar to public comment and should be a more larger discussion among this body as to how we do that. So that's where we're at, and with that, I move this forward and hope that we can, if there's any questions, fire away.
Councilman Duncan makes a motion. Do we have a second so that we could have discussion? Second. Councilwoman Nager seconds. At this point in time, we open up discussion. Councilwoman Valdivia Alcala, and I think Councilwoman Ortiz also had her hand up.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say I don't feel at this time that I'm going to be able to support this. I totally appreciate the work that you guys have done on the committee. I'm going to be very specific in that I do not believe that we are out of the woods yet for COVID, for Omicron, whatever we're calling it, for any number of the variants that are out there. We are trying to be extra cautious here in our household. I gotta say, I get really frustrated being there, and I'm the only one that's wearing a mask. I mean, I understand to each his own, but, I think that as elected officials, we should be able to have that latitude for a little while longer. I can see coming back to this within 6 months, but everything that you're reading is saying that January is going to be a bad month. And so that is specifically the reason why I just don't think that, drilling it down to 3 meetings a week. I'll make every meeting in person that I can, but if I feel that it's not safe, I'm not going to enter the chambers and be around a lot of people. And that would be to keep everyone safe as well as myself. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilwoman Ortiz, to be followed by Councilwoman Nager.
Thank you, Mayor.
I struggled with the 3 times per year, and I'll tell you why. I believe it was in 2009, I had emergency surgery on top of emergency surgery, so I was out 3 months. It would have been great to have some type of Zoom situation available to me, but we didn't have that. I know sometimes when my allergies are acting up, I too like to be unmasked as opposed to being, if I'm coming to the chambers, I'm putting on my mask. And I like to be unmasked sometimes just so I can feel like I can breathe. So I'm just really struggling with the 3 times. Spencer, I know what you're trying to do. I understand you guys are probably trying to get it so people are not trying to abuse it. But I must say, I really have to commend council members who are out of town on vacation. I know Lesser's been out and he got on just to make the meeting. I know, I don't know how many times Tony was dark in his car, but he made it a point to make the meeting. And I know our constituents want us there, but they also want us safe as well. So those are some of the things that I struggle with at this particular time. And I too think, you know, every morning when I get up and I listen to Dr. Fossey, he's already said you need to cancel Christmas. You know, and that this is 2 to 1 and it's not getting any better. And everybody has the right to do what they're going to do, but I would like to see us put this on hold for a little bit longer as well. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councilwoman Nager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I had some of these same concerns. What we can do, though, is we can always suspend the rules for longer. At this point, we have nothing in our governing body rules to allow us to meet virtually. We have to suspend it every time, and no, we're not out of this. But I do think that as we move to a, God willing, a post-COVID world, we can go ahead and look at the 3. But even if we were to go ahead and approve this tonight, we would still suspend the rules and be in a safe spot. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councilman Duncan.
So yeah, 2
Councilman
things.
Lesser, I see you.
2 things, and it's not on the agenda tonight, and I was going to bring it up sort of as we ended this conversation. I know there'd been talk about whether we were going to extend our suspension of the rules or not. I think there was a hope that we wouldn't, and then Omicron has hit, and there may be a desire now to extend that. So I was going to mention after this if we were going to have that conversation tonight and take a vote to do it for another 30 or 60 days. The second thing is, yeah, this only applies to the rules when we're not suspending our rules. So at this point, the minute we stop suspending our rules, we revert back to the old rules. So if we don't suspend our rules, then the current rule is you can't miss a meeting at all, period, and you have no Zoom option. So if we want to talk about expanding that or changing it, that's fine, but I just want there to be an understanding that the current rules would still stand if we don't make these changes for both committee meetings and this governing body that would not allow any if we once we do stop suspending the rules, whenever that is. So we sort of felt like we could do these 2 things at once, and if nothing else, and I know this is what they pass this, and then as we suspend our rules another 60 days, I go back to it's a living document, and then start to have some more conversations about, hey, maybe it should be 5 meetings or something to that effect. So that's one reason tonight we brought this up for action, since we are so uncertain. It gives us a little more movement forward. So thank you.
Councilman Lesser.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, 2 things. Number one is I'm viewing this change absolutely without any consideration of what COVID has to do with it, because there again, as far as that goes, I'm going to do what I think is the safest for myself and for my family, regardless of what anybody tells me I'm going to do. So I'm looking at this amendment more so, hopefully when we get to a point where we're past that and we're at a safe place. I commend you guys for tackling this. You know, I look at the 3 main ones on the memo, and in regards to 2, there again, what I'm doing is I'm talking primarily, and the other reality of that is I know we're going to do what's right, what's safe, for, you know, in regards to COVID. So I'm not concerned about that piece of it, you know. I'll do what the hell I'm going to want to do anyway on that as far as that goes. So, and I think everybody else will. But in regards to 2, as we move forward, and I'm using the assumption that we're past COVID and all the variants, and we're trying to get as, you know, life is as normal as possible. I just don't see why there's any limitations on the electronic participation. We have the ability to do that. Most of us want to be there, are going to be there. But, you know, in regards to the 3 meetings in a year, you know, I don't know that that's sufficient. And then in regards to members may participate electronically at discretion, I guess that's more for the committee meetings. But I think where we have the opportunity to do this, we just ought to use it if we can. I mean, if you're going to get the type of, I mean, the reality of it is if we're going to get the type of people that are going to run for council now and in the future, they have other commitments. They have, you know, jobs, all those type of things that require travel in a global economy. And my position would just be that we just, you know, Rule 2 says, Rule 2.3, the committee chose to modify the rules for electronic participation for governing body meetings. You know, I would just want it to be available at all times, that if you need to use it because you're out of town on business, because you're sick, because, you know, whatever it is, I just think we have the technology, we ought to use it personally, but that's my position.
I'll just add, as a person that is not going to be impacted by these rules, that there were times that I was able to do things remotely when I was really, really sick. Now, mind you, I flunked out like after 8 o'clock because I couldn't breathe, right? I mean, another example is I was able to run the JADO meeting from California because I had a meeting in California. You know, just as we look at, yes, it's critical to come, absolutely. But as we look at the way that our economy is moving and the way that we expect our council members to have a job, because we know that the salary is not the greatest. It would be important for us to, you know, continue figuring out how to create more leniency and availability for people to be able to participate and do that online. But right now, I think that we can suspend the rules and continue doing something so that everybody can keep on doing that, the remote work. Any other comments, or Councilwoman Hiller?
Thank you, Mayor. A couple of comments. One, I really appreciate the work that the committee has done, and really, in a funny way, doing it while we have the rules suspended, and there's time to really talk about it and appreciate. None of us had ever experienced the opportunity to have remote until this happened, and so I appreciate all that work. I personally have mixed feelings about that requirement for people to be here. I can support it and see how it goes. The one worry I have on that is that the way you kind of engineered that in here is that 6 people have to be here live or we can't operate the meeting. And so if somehow 3 people called, 4 people took their opportunity to call their optional one in for whatever reason, and then somebody's sick, we can't even hold a meeting because there wouldn't be 6 people live. And I guess depending on the circumstances, we would just figure out what we were going to do. But I don't know if you talked about it. That's one thing that's embedded in this process, and I know you talked about it, but it worries me a little bit. The other thing that you didn't mention that I really appreciate that you did, it's been talked about for a long time, was got language in the 2 places that mentions Robert's rules to say that these, instead of running the council by Robert's rules, that it's by the governing body rules, and that the Robert's rules are kind of a backup. And again, we've talked about that for a long time. I really appreciate that. We have a little less formal process here, and I think it's fine. With that, and I've talked to Spencer today, there's a couple of technicals in there that I would change out. You've talked me out of bringing them up tonight, as long as you're going to work on it again. Because I do think cleaning that out and having language and procedures that we simply don't follow. I like to have our rules reflect what we're really expecting or what we really do. So I'll have a couple when you bring it back next year. But again, I wanted to give you credit for taking care of that long-standing detail as well. Thank you, Mayor.
Other comments before Councilman Dobler?
Just a question. We're under a suspension of rules right now.
Yeah.
When does that end?
January 5th.
The 5th, so we can vote in.
So we can extend it on that day. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we do have a motion and we have a second. Councilwoman Nager, yes.
I have a quick question about like friendly amendments. It sounds like everybody has the issue with wanting to revisit the how many meetings can you zoom into as far as general meetings. Is it okay if we take out that language for right now, revisit it next year with the Policy and Finance Committee? And I'm looking right at you because I know that we worked on it. And go ahead and pass the rest of this document so we can go ahead and still, like we wanted to, make some steps forward on things that do not seem to be too laborious for people. And then come back to the governing body outline. Is that something that we can do?
You made the motion.
Yeah.
Well, I guess what I haven't heard, despite some differences with that three, is an alternative suggestion. So I guess tonight, I'll ask one, going once, do we have a motion? Let me start here. As long as my seconder agrees, I'm going to rescind my motion.
Okay.
Let's start there. That gets us back to point
Square
A.
zero.
That's square zero. So we can, and if that's not something we want to tackle tonight, that's fine. But I want to make sure if there is a motion to make a change in this document as it regards to attendance, speak now. I may not support it, but I want to give someone the opportunity to make it.
Councilman Dobler.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just thinking if we made it unlimited, you could zoom in an unlimited number of times. We did that for the next year, then we wouldn't, number one, we wouldn't have to keep suspending the rules, right? We'd be covered. We could revisit at some point, whether it's 6 months or 9 months or a year from now, and maybe have a better track record on
In the
who
quorum
zooms and,
issue as well.
pardon?
In the quorum issue as well.
The quorum issue as well. So, I don't know what exactly is involved in changing that language to remove the 3 times a year and make it unlimited. But I guess
City
I would
Attorney?
make that motion.
Sorry, I'm writing it out real quick. Give me.
So if we could give the city attorney a second to come up with the language amendment.
Great.
Let's just pause for a minute and give her a second to write.
Music.
Could I ask a question?
Everybody.
Could I ask a question
Yes, ma'am.
while she's thinking? If we did that, would you still be revisiting the rest of the language the first quarter of the year?
Yeah, I think some of the questions that were asked by a few others that were, whether you consider them technical or bigger than that, still need to be addressed, yes.
Because when she said friendly amendment, for instance, that's one
No,
of the
but
sections
that
I
would
have a problem
resolve
with.
this issue. That would resolve
No,
this
the friendly
issue.
amendment was off. There is nothing, there is no.
No. The issue of having carefully stated the
Right.
motion before a friendly amendment or an amendment can be made is
No, yeah, so we'll go back and look at that. And it'll provide us a year or two, truthfully. We may revisit this and maybe there's a better idea. We all decided unlimited was a terrible idea, and we need to limit it to 15 a year or some number that's large, but, it gives us an opportunity to redo that.
Unlimited participation.
We put in that unfriendly amendment.
That's in there. The word.
Can we put some language in that Tony can only attend so many times a year?
That's a possibility, sir. We're in the process of that.
At least not from outside with his big jacket on.
Yeah, right. Sitting in a car.
Because I will say too, and I think we will still need to address it with some language again over the next year, but this will also resolve the public comment issue for the time being also. Because obviously if
Correct.
we're zooming in, Zoom is available now at every meeting, therefore public comment will now be open at every meeting. I mean, I think that's implied. If I'm wrong, speak now, but it sure seems to me that
And it
that's
would
the
allow
implication
staff
there. And staff to
and guests.
do presentations. So yes, I think we've opened all that up. And worst case, we consider this a trial run and see how it goes. And best case, it works out and we're happy with it. And there we are. Man, it's like you had me write so many amendments you're not going to
That's okay.
use tonight. And then you give me one at the last minute that I haven't thought 1 minute about.
Sorry, that's okay. I can do things on the fly. Okay, I believe the motion would be to amend Rule 2.3 for electronic participation to state governing body members shall be allowed to participate in an unlimited number of meetings electronically, provided there is an arrangement for the voice of the remote participant to be heard by all persons at the primary or central meeting location, commencing January 1st, 2022.
What does that do, sorry, Mayor,
Sir, yes?
what does that do for having a minimum of 6 people present?
That deletes that
Okay,
Okay,
line
wonderful.
completely.
that's a motion I would make then.
So we have a motion made by Councilman Dobler. Councilman Dobler, is that motion of the amendment or of the amended document? So I think we have to first vote on the amendment by Robert's rules, correct, Amanda? Or can we vote on the amended document?
You could make a friendly motion, you could make a motion to pass the document as amended.
Okay,
Pursuant to what I just said.
all right. Do we have, second? We need a second before we have comment. Comment by Councilwoman Nager, comment by Councilwoman Hiller.
We've got a problem, and I think maybe we need to just hold this a week if we want to change it. 2.2 says 6 members have to be present in person. It's a separate section from 2.3.
I think she said she struck that.
That wasn't part of your motion, though.
Look at the clean version.
That's the clean.
It doesn't match on the bottom from my computer screen. Sorry. Like,
I've got the red line version, and it's
This is what
very
happens when
specific in 2.2.
one second to log on the computer, I apologize. I was looking at the,
We can just strike
Do you want my
that.
copy?
That's what I was going to say. We could make a friendly amendment now that we have a motion and a second to strike that. Vote on the striking, and then we vote on the final amended
Thank you.
document.
We just might have forgotten something, I don't know.
No, it's okay. But remember, the document is a living. Thank you for catching that.
correct. So then you would also, the amendment would also include Rule 2.2A, where it would strike the language in person. It would just say 6 members of the governing body must be present, or shall constitute a quorum and be necessary for the transaction of business. So it would strike the 2 words in person.
Okay, so do we have an amendment to
Present in
strike the 2 words in person?
3 words, present in person, sorry.
It follows, there's more than,
Where?
it continues and says if 6 members are physically present, there's more language that got added that's got to go.
Right, it would strike A.
Would it just strike all the changes in A?
Yes,
I think.
yes, it would strike all the red line in A.
Okay, Councilwoman, would you make that motion?
Yes, just strike the red line.
Okay. The amendment would be to strike all of the redlined additions in 2.2A.
That would,
Thank you. Do we have a second for
That'd be
that?
the friendly amendment, right?
A friendly amendment.
I got it. Okay.
We're there, we're there.
Do we have a second?
I will second the friendly.
We
Government on
have
the
a
fly.
second for the friendly amendment. Okay, so now we have a friendly amendment on a motion that has been moved and seconded by Councilman Dobler. If there's other discussion, Councilman Emerson, he doesn't want to sit outside.
Thank you, Mayor. I think I followed all that, but just so that we are absolutely clear what we're voting on here, would the city attorney maybe mind reading what A would say now? 2.2A
Well,
And
2A will be stricken, but the bottom line, just so that everybody in the public knows what we're voting on the document as presented by Councilman Duncan. However, now, council members will have an ability to unlimitedly participate in the council meetings via Zoom. And in addition to that, any language that states that there has to be any sort of physical quorum in order for there to be a meeting has been stricken.
Okay, and for Councilmember Emerson, A would read in 2.2, 6, parentheses 6, members of the governing body shall constitute a quorum and be necessary for the transaction of business. Period.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for the question. Thank you for the clarification. At this point in time, if there's no other questions, we proceed by vote. Yes, sir.
Actually, one question for legal, which I sort of know the answer to, but I think it's important to make sure we say it. This change still conforms with all state laws that exist that allow us to hold meetings via this method.
Correct. The Kansas Open Meetings Law allows totally electronic meetings if necessary.
Correct. Great. Thank you. Just thought it was good to say that out loud.
Absolutely. All right. With that, we proceed by voting.
Councilmember Ortiz has a question.
Oh, Councilmember Ortiz. Sorry, I didn't have her in the screen.
That's okay, thank you. I did have Amanda draw up something. Amanda, where do I tie that in at?
If you would like me to pass out your motion, I can pass it out and then you can move your amendment.
Sure.
And for those that
I want to explain, last week we had something on the non-action item that we voted on. And I thought about that. It was a good thing that we voted on it. We were pressed for time. But there were some council members that weren't at the meeting. And I just don't want to get in the habit of us voting on non-action items to make sure that we're transparent to the public and that council members have a right to be there and know what we're voting on. So what we voted on last week was the opium vote, and although it was a good vote, there might be something that's brought forward that's really not good or another council member might have issue with. I hope the members that weren't there, Mr. Lesser and I forgot who else wasn't there, I hope they didn't have any issues. And that's why I bring this forward, because I just want to make sure that that doesn't get pulled and we vote on it and hey, let's go on our merry way, because we all have a right at the table. We all should make sure that we are in agreement with that, whether we're there or not. Thank you. Amanda, where do you want me to put it in at?
Well, you would just make your motion to insert the amendment that was passed out on 5.3.
There's my motion.
And for those of you at home, the motion that Councilwoman Ortiz
It's also
is-
in their email, too.
Yeah, but I'm just for the people that are watching. For the people that are watching, the insertion says non-action items may not be voted unless the governing body first suspends the rules pursuant to Rule 6.3. So we have a motion by Councilwoman Ortiz. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Councilman Duncan. At this point in time, if there's no other questions with regards to Councilwoman Ortiz, yes, sir.
Just want to get a clarification, make sure I'm understanding this. So if we have a non-action item and we collectively sit in the room say, well, maybe we'd like to vote on this tonight, first we would have to have a motion and a
Suspend the
second and then
motion.
take a vote to suspend our rules, get an approval on that, and then take action on the item, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, just want to make sure that that's what it was. Thank you.
Okay, so at this point, the only vote is to add Councilwoman Ortiz's amendment onto the document that has been friendly amended. Just so that everybody's keeping track. With that, we proceed with the vote.
Mayor, I do have a quick question. How many votes will we be taking, just to clarify before I start? Just two?
2 votes.
Okay,
Right now, just.
1 vote for the amendment, and then the second vote for the amended document.
okay. Thank you, Mayor. Councilmembers Ortiz,
Yes.
Emerson,
Yes.
Padilla,
Yes.
Nager,
Yes.
Dobler,
Yes.
Duncan,
Yes.
Lesser,
Yes.
Mayor De La Isla.
Yes.
Councilmembers Hiller,
Yes.
Valdivia Akala.
Yes.
We have 10 voting yes.
Okay, we have added Councilwoman Ortiz amendment to the document. At this point in time, we would be approving the whole document with all of the amendments presented. So we had a motion, we had a second. If there's no further comment, we proceed with the adoption of the document as amended. Councilwoman Hiller.
Could we please, just because there was so much discussion, clarify what the first friendly amendment included in total? I mean, the amendment that I made was just on 2A, but the other one was, or 2.2, but 2.3 needed to be amended as well. Are they both in that amendment? Yes. Okay, thank you.
With that, we proceed by voting.
Councilmembers Emerson,
Yes.
Padilla,
Yes.
Nager,
Yes.
Dobler,
Yes.
Duncan,
Yes.
Lesser,
Yes.
Mayor De La Isla,
Yes.
Councilmembers Hiller,
Yes.
Valdivia Akala,
Yes.
and Ortiz.
Yes.
We have 10 voting yes.
10 voting yes, the motion carries. We move on to item B. Congratulations, Councilman Duncan. Thank you for your hard work. Okay, item B.
Item B is approval of the City of Topeka Digital Equity and Inclusion Statement of Commitment as recommended by the Public Health and Safety Committee.
Councilman Dobler.
Thank you, Mayor. We had a discussion of this last week. Again, this just is a statement of the city's commitment to digital equity and sets us up really for the ability to receive federal funding that's coming down the road. I would make a motion to approve.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Councilman Mayor-elect Padilla seconds. Do we have additional comments or questions with regards to the equity statement? Seeing none, we proceed by voting.
Councilmembers Padilla,
Yes.
Nager,
Yes.
Dobler,
Yes.
Duncan,
Yes.
Lester,
Yes.
Mayor De La Isla,
Yes.
Councilmembers Hiller,
Yes.
Valdivia Akala,
Yes.
Ortiz,
Yes.
Emerson.
Yes.
We have 10 voting yes.
10 voting yes, the motion carries. We move on to item C, if the clerk would read.
Item C is a resolution introduced by City Manager Brent Trout authorizing the use of excess funds from the general fund balance.
City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. So tonight, we have before you a resolution that would designate the surplus year-end money for expenditures that we've identified in the resolution, which include the AED units, additional money for demolitions, support for the Menninger Tower utilities, the HVAC project for City Hall, that's $1.5 million of a $3.5 million project, a patch truck purchase, money for a code consultant for the Change Our Culture, work for infill sidewalks, and then money to complete payoff of a Huntoon or Livonia project from the past.
We have heard staff's desires. What is the pleasure of the governing body?
Mayor.
We have a motion for approval. Do we have a second for discussion?
Second.
Second, Councilman Duncan seconds. Discussion, Councilman Duncan.
Got an amendment, Mayor. Maybe.
Do they have it remotely?
I think she emailed it.
Okay. Do you have one?
I believe this has been emailed to those of you on Zoom. It essentially adds the following. All of the above referenced uses of excess unreserved fund balances meet one or more of the conditions stated in resolution number 8824, which is this resolution. The reason for this was not sure, this is an estimated balance, not an actual balance, so there will have to be a reassessment once we actually get through the year in case any of these numbers need to be changed. And second of all, it ensures that, as there's one or two projects on here that I think staff is still compiling some information for some governing body members, if it doesn't fall into those criteria or it's questioned, we can go back and say, you know, that may not have been what we intended under these criteria that we listed, so this provision ensures it meets those criteria. I think that's essentially what this does. If anyone would like to add or tell me I'm wrong, that would be good, but it sort of ensures that we can do a secondary review. There's a few projects in here that aren't going to start immediately, but there's a few that do, i.e. our AED units are about to expire. So those need to be bought in January, whereas things like a few others can be pushed off till later next year and have some further review. So that's the gist of the purpose of this amendment.
Comments or questions for Councilman Duncan? Councilwoman Hiller.
Thank you, Mayor. I made some comments last week. I guess I'm still not comfortable that the HVAC and City Hall project are not even in our CIP. They're in our list of facilities that need to be addressed, but we've not seen a project or a full discussion of what this would cover and what would still remain and so on. I just would rather have language in there that says facilities, let's say, maybe not firm if City Hall isn't in the firm program at this time, but something that leaves it open, that we would spend it on facilities, but that we would not designate exactly where it would be spent until we've seen a project budget and had a chance to review it like we do all others. So I wouldn't change the dollars, but, and I'm open for discussion on that.
So can I clarify that? So you would just change HVAC to facilities?
Yeah.
Would that take, give us time?
City Hall is still
Would
a
that work?
facility.
I think so, yeah, okay.
And I had a question about the Menninger Tower project. I was thinking in general, if any of these things didn't develop, by the end of the year, would we want to spend the money on something else? And so, sort of like, and I'm just seeing your change, so I'm having a hard time looking at it all at the same time, but if it was, double check final revision based on the year-end numbers for the excess amount and whatever the word would be, the status of the needs or developments of the projects. So,
City Manager, would you care to respond?
Well, I think specifically to the Menninger Hill project, I think it's important that we have that one specifically called out from the standpoint that that is an incentive that we're providing, and I would not want to not have that available. I want to be able to talk to the developer to let them know that this has been approved, so that as they continue to work at pulling their financing together and finish and closing their gap, that they know this is now on the table and supported by the governing body. Now, if their project did not happen, then it would obviously go to reserves. And if it happened, if we knew they weren't going to do it within the next 3 months, when we might be able to have still some time to make entries related to other types of projects, we could then divert it to something else if we found out on that time. But the important thing is that if none of this happens, all this money goes into the reserves. And the council could at any point pull it out of reserves and designate it for a project. And so they can take those actions at any point. And so it's not a bad thing to have it designated and have the project not happen because the money strictly goes into reserve.
okay. Well, I would move an amendment to substitute the term facilities for HVAC City Hall.
Yeah, right.
We can just add that to my amendment if we want.
Okay.
That works for me.
So a friendly amendment?
Right, a friendly amendment that
Okay.
would change HVAC to facilities.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's my understanding, by law, we have to at least designate these funds, but if whatever we designate them to doesn't come to fruition, then they can revert back. But this stops us from then having to pull them out of reserves later to go over this list again, so.
We have two people with questions. First of all, Councilman Emerson, to be followed by Councilman Lesser.
Thank you, Mayor. I know we talked about this last week, and I think I have an understanding what each of these projects is, but I guess it gives me a little pause that, you know, it just says Minninger Tower, and under that, if we're approving that Minninger Tower, could staff decide that we're going to give these guys $400,000 to do something to the Minninger Tower? I mean, is there anything, I mean, as I understand, that was for utilities for the Minninger Tower, so I guess I'm wondering why it's not more specific, or I don't think anybody's trying to pull anything, but I just mean that it's pretty wide open in here with how we're describing these projects.
City Manager.
If you wanted to add the words Minninger Tower Utilities Installation, that would be narrowing it down to utilities installation for that project, you know.
Okay, and how about on demolition, for instance, City Manager, that's demolition of, I guess.
Yes, it's demolition of homes and a business property, commercial property.
Okay, thank you. I guess I would like that noted, that's what that is. Again, I don't think anybody's trying to pull anything here. It just seems pretty loose the way we describe these in here.
So just taking note, the focus would be to change demolition to address that it's of homes and a business, changing HVAC to facilities, and the last amendment was to change the Minninger Tower to include Minninger Tower infrastructure.
Or utilities installation.
Or utilities.
Yeah, I think it was utilities, Mayor, but yes, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, City Manager.
We can add those to this friendly amendment train, if you'd like, Councilman Emerson.
Okay, we have a document as amended in front of us by friendly amendment. As read before, demolition to include houses and building, HVAC to facilities, and Minninger Tower to include utilities. The word utilities next to it. We have a motion and we have a second at this. Councilman Lesser, forgive me.
You're fine, you're fine. I think the only other thing that I would like to see if there's any consensus among my colleagues is the things that if they were to not happen, if they were not to come to fruition, then the money goes just back into reserves. I would rather there be a consensus of we, as a body, say that the money that if the Minninger project does not come to fruition or what have you, then that, or HVAC for City Hall, then that those funds then get applied to street projects, something such as that, because I've been here 4 years and pulling money out of reserves is like pulling teeth. I think we've done it one time since I've been here. No disrespect, I know it's important, but I think I would rather develop a consensus that says if these things don't happen, this money gets applied to street projects or something like that, because clearly our community has spoken to us and said those are things that are important to us, as well as the infrastructure in regards to that. So that would be, I don't know if that's a friendly amendment, but I'm asking for feedback and consensus from my colleagues on that.
Councilwoman Heller?
In terms of feedback, I would think that maybe what would need to be inserted was a date certain, kind of a sunset date, if you will. How long do you think, Mike, end of the first quarter, or, if these projects have not developed, I'm trying to follow what you're saying.
Just a second, Councilwoman. I think Councilman Dobler has an answer to that.
Okay.
I would just suggest we say funds that aren't spent by the end of 2022 will roll into a street repair project for 2023.
Boom.
If Councilman Lesser agrees with that.
Councilman Lesser, do you agree with that?
Good with that.
You say you're good with that?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'm good with that.
Okay.
Question.
Councilwoman Hiller.
Some of these projects may not be done. Your word was spent.
Encumbered
Was it-
would be better?
Yeah, encumbered's fine.
Just
Maybe we
checking.
can find an even longer word somewhere.
Just checking.
Can I ask a clarifying question on that? This resolution encumbers them now, so they would be encumbered. So something between spent and encumbered would be good.
Under contract?
I mean, what project, sorry, Mayor, if I could ask a question, what projects on here would not be complete by the end of 2022?
I would suspect that the HVAC system, any facilities work would probably not be completed by 2022. I think
Or the mini-
everything else, assuming that they happen, as far as the Menninger Tower, I think the others will be. Infield sidewalks, I don't see an issue with that being possible to do. So the only one we're really dealing with, in my opinion, would be the HVAC system, and facilities work.
You have Finance Director Wade coming up to you.
I think the Menninger Tower is likely to not be done
I
yet.
think that project is starting.
If it develops.
That's being an incentive to get something done by the end of the year. Yeah.
Well, the issue is that, for instance, on the facilities, we're going to be doing $2 million worth of facilities. We can use the money.
Yeah. We can use it in 2022.
For sure.
Thanks.
City Manager.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was just concern that the patch truck may have an 18-month delivery time. I believe from talking with staff that we may have one that they're going to loan us that we may be able to buy. And so we'd have to clarify that.
So what's the right word, Councilman Dobler?
So it's already encumbered, spent by the end of 2022. Are we back to that?
Spent or under contract to be spent would work
Under
too.
contract to be spent. That probably is a good.
Wanted to make
Yeah,
sure.
because that would fix the patch truck issue because we would have ordered it and we would have it on order, so it would be under contract to be spent.
Okay.
Same
Great.
thing I said. Under contract.
So, to clarify, there's my original motion, which makes sure it falls into these categories. There will be the HVAC change to facilities, Menninger Tower utilities installation, demolition of homes and businesses, and that we will now ensure that if this money is not under contract or spent by the end of 2022, it will go into street projects.
Yes, sir.
All right. So that's the motion.
And you had seconded.
I still second it.
All right, so we still have a second after the document as presented. If there is no other questions, we proceed by voting.
Councilmembers Nager? Yes. Dobler?
Yes.
Duncan?
Yes.
Lesser?
Yes,
Mayor De La Isla?
Yes.
Councilmembers Heller?
Yes.
Valdeva Akala?
Yes.
Ortiz?
Yes.
Emerson?
Yes.
Padilla?
Yes.
We have 10 voting yes.
10 voting yes, the motion passes. Y'all have just had too much fun tonight in my last meeting, making sure that I'm on the ball. 'Cause
We're
you
not done
guys
yet, Mayor,
do
don't
not-
worry.
Yeah, you guys do not do this much, like,
Get it out of you.
yeah. Item D, if the clerk would read.
Item D is an ordinance introduced by Councilmember Neil Dobler concerning compulsory retirement amending chapters 2.30 and 2.35 of the Topeka Municipal Code.
Councilman Dobler.
Thank you, Mayor. I know there's been quite a bit of discussion in the week since we discussed this last week. I've had a couple of council members ask about postponing this to give it a little bit more time for discussion. I'm certainly open to a motion to put it off till sometime in January if that's the desire.
Councilman Duncan.
as Councilman Dobler said, there's just been some discussion, both actually positive discussion, no slings and arrows, discussion with members of departments and the unions and other members. And I had some amendments tonight that they said, wait, that's not terrible, but it's got some issues and we'd like to discuss it if that's really what you want to push forward through. So for the idea would be to be able to sit down for 30 days, see if we can suit both of our needs, which is make sure that their needs on those ages get met, but some of us who would like to look at some exception somewhere within the departments can also be met, or some language. And if we can't come to that, we'll vote on it in 30 days and it'll be what it'll be. And if we can come up with a compromise in the next 30 days, that would be great. So the motion would be to put this off into an agenda item either at the end of January or 1st of February till that time. And so that would give us time to work on that.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second by Councilman Dobler. Discussion. Councilwoman Valdivia Alcala to be followed by Councilwoman Hiller.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have basic question. What's the issue for wanting to prolong it? I mean, I know you're saying it very vaguely, but can you do a little bit more of a deep dive?
I didn't catch that second part. I mean, the general reason is there's been some talk about, we've looked at this issue a lot through the prism of what I'll say boots on the ground type positions, but we have positions within both those departments that aren't on the street, that are doing work, administrative roles. So there's a few of us on the council who have thought there's got to be a way to carve out some exception or some ability to deal with those individuals. Some of our suggestions may have bumped into being more contract negotiation issues rather than ordinance issues, which is not what we wanted to create that problem. And so we would just like some time to sit down with the departments and the unions and see if there's some language that doesn't bump into those issues but addresses our desires, if you will. So we didn't see a need to do this today, but we also don't want to prolong it, which is why we said if we can't do it in 30 days, so be it. We'll take a vote and it'll end up where it ends up.
Okay, thank you on that. I would just keep us abreast of it then as it moves along.
We will.
Thank you.
Mayor?
According to the rules, there does need to be a date certain, so I believe February 1st is the first meeting in February, if you want to make that part of your motion.
Sure. Yes. Yes.
Okay, so the motion is, yes, Councilman Dobler.
Before we vote, I wonder if this would be appropriate to put into the Policy and Finance Committee as the venue for discussion. Do you have a meeting in January?
We don't in terms of historically. I guess it's still the same committee until the new, so yes, we can definitely meet in mid-January and have some talks before that and take a look at it. Not a problem.
Okay. Seeing no more questions, we proceed by voting. And again, the vote is to resend this to the February 1st meeting of 2022, and for this to be discussed at the Policy and Finance Committee.
Councilmembers Dobler,
Yes.
Duncan,
Yes.
Lester,
Yes.
Mayor De La Isla,
Yes.
Councilmembers Hiller,
Yes.
Valdivia Alcala,
Yes.
Ortiz,
Yes.
Emerson,
Yes.
Padilla,
Yes.
Nager. Yes. We have 10 voting yes.
10 voting yes, the motion carries. We now move on to the non-action item. First non-action item, item A, the clerk would read.
Item A is a discussion regarding the City of Topeka Dreams proposal.
City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. So the concept of the DREAMS program was developed from a grassroots citizen effort that was brought to staff by Councilwoman Hiller. The DREAMS program, I will say, is more than just a grant program. Staff is focused primarily on the grant program and what we would do related to dreams and sort. And Councilwoman Hiller and also Mike Spatafor, who is signed up to speak tonight, they could obviously talk more to what the rest of the components that they feel are important as far as the DREAMS program. But I worked with staff to review the concepts that were developed so that we could develop it into a proposal, and that proposal is attached here tonight. The purpose of the change was to start looking at doing SORT every other year instead of doing it every year. So we would do SORT one year and the DREAMS program the next. The primary purpose of both of these concepts is to support the neighborhoods and see them grow and see them develop through investments in infrastructure and housing within their areas, within their neighborhoods, and oftentimes a targeted part of their neighborhood. The programs utilize the same amount of funding that's designated for capital improvements and housing that SORT would use. DREAMS year grants will be spread typically over multiple neighborhoods versus the one neighborhood that SORT currently does. The spreading of the funding will allow the opportunity for neighborhoods to see capital improvements in their neighborhood when they maybe don't need the entire SORT funding for their neighborhood. So the concept is being brought before you now. We've been working with them well over 6 months. I can't remember exactly when we started, but it's been quite a while. And I wanted to make sure that I bring this forward for at least discussion to the governing body prior to my departure. It's an item that has had a great deal of input. I've met with the citizens that worked on this and met with Councilwoman Hiller a number of times. I think it really merits some consideration. And I wanted to bring it also because as we go into the budget process, this affects the decisions that the staff will do, because when it's SORT, it's one area. It takes longer. The planning process is 4 years. Versus DREAMS, it's a process that takes about 3 years from the decision to fund to actual construction of the projects. So I'll stand for questions and provide information as needed, additional information as needed.
So if appropriate for the council's edification, Mr. Spatafor is here. I would like to call him to the dais so that he could speak to the governing body before we proceed with our discussion.
He's on Zoom, I believe.
Oh, hello.
Is he there, Gretchen?
Hi
He's
there.
there.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. My name is Mike Spatafor. I'm the president of the Historic Old Town NIA. I would like to share my support for tonight's concept as a first step in reconsidering the ways our citizens interact and collaborate with city staff to bring about the kinds of changes in our community that make us proud to call Topeka home. I was fortunate to be part of the Neighborhood Initiatives work group that has worked on the DREAMS program over the past 2 years, and I look forward to continuing to work with the city staff to implement even more components of the DREAMS program as we move forward together. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Comments, questions from the governing body? Again, this is a discussion item. It's not an item that we're going to vote on tonight. So it's your opportunity to ask city manager any questions that you have with regards to the DREAMS program. Councilwoman Ortiz.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So when is all this going to start? Like, when are we going to send the RFPs out, and when are we looking to start this after we approve it?
So if it was pursued, the process would be similar to what we experience now. In the months of January through March, the neighborhoods would start to think of what they have for DREAMS within their neighborhood. What are they interested in seeing that would occur? And then in April through June, staff would meet with those communities, those neighborhoods, and begin to talk to them about what projects may already be going on in their neighborhood, that understand what their desires are, give them ideas as to how much something like that costs. We have planning factors we use for if you want to do a sidewalk, you can do this many blocks for this number. If you're doing a street, it would be approximately that. And allow them to begin to take a look at with the items that they see are needed in their neighborhood, what the cost generally would be, and help them to formulate a project that they could then pursue when they write their grant application, either for SORT or for the DREAMS program. And so they would do that consulting. And it's mentioned in the document, there's a schedule on page 3 where then basically, and then July, they would then put in their application for the programs. And then the CAC still would do the selection of who would receive DREAMS 1, which is really SORT in the past, and then DREAMS 2, which then multiple NIAs would then be eligible for. And then they would begin and eventually get approval of the council and move forward with the program. Does that provide answer to your question?
Did it answer your question, Councilwoman?
Yes, I just had somebody that was just wanting to make sure that they kept up on when this was going to happen, since this is a little bit different, you know, and there'll be a little bit of change. So will staff meet with the NIAs or the applicants that want to come forward and just like they did with SORT and help them fill out their applications, et cetera, et cetera?
Yes, ma'am, that's exactly what will happen. And I think, you know, it will involve, in the past, it may not have, but now the intent is the way we have it set up, that community engagement, engineering, housing, planning, and utilities would all be at those consults, meeting with the neighbors to be able to provide them information that they have so that we have a coordinated effort in their neighborhood in order to make sure that no stone is left unturned as far as helping them to help their dreams come true.
Well, there's other dreams.
Oh.
Amen.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Valdivia Alcala.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say that I really look forward to seeing this program come to fruition with us every other year. I think it's really going to be interesting to see the ideas, the creativity, the thinking outside the box that can come with the dreams application, and yet still having the model of the traditional sort. I would say that I think that it is going to be imperative in my mind that staff, become very familiar, do the homework that they need to do now that, we're going to be dealing with, if this is, approved, on two different models for grants. And I know that, the issues that we're having with leftover funds from some previous sort years that have created somewhat of a debacle, which I'll discuss later on, with no one seeming to know where the money is. I think it's going to be imperative that staff get fully integrated into this program. And I'm just excited, and I hope that when the vote comes up, the vote will be the majority yes to make this happen, because I think it just speaks of nothing but great things for the future of our neighborhoods. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilwoman Hiller.
My name got mentioned. I'll mention briefly, and thank you. City Manager chose to work with Mr. Fyander in particular to really work on the grant part of this DREAMS model. There are actually, it's a complete program change document, and there's a checklist that's just a page that helps you kind of look through the different features of it. There are 18 different pieces in that program. This grant change is one of them, and then City Manager talked on, for instance, about the consults and so on. So as not to clutter up this discussion this evening and let people focus on it, we didn't try and bring the rest of it forward, but I would promise one thing and encourage one thing. The promise is, if people are interested, we can send out this checklist and the full DREAMS package maybe around the first of the year, so that it's after the holidays, and give you a chance to look at it and process it and see what questions you have, and then we could get a presentation on the whole package maybe in January or February sometime. The other thing I would point out is a lot of this is procedural and programmatic. It's not policy. It's not necessarily anything the council would be voting on. It's just how we deliver program. So I would encourage people to ask questions either today or as time goes along. Monique is here, I know, Bill is here. As this unfolds, I appreciate the comments from Councilwoman Ortiz and the support from Councilwoman Valdivia. It's going to be big, but please plug into it as much as you want to, because otherwise it could end up being off radar in many ways as far as the council goes. So, thank you.
Well, thank you all. Great discussion. City Manager, it seems that you have some support from the council body in this regard. Again, this is not an item for voting, and we encourage everybody to make sure that they are able to reach out to city manager after this meeting with any questions you have on this. We now move on to item B, if the clerk would read.
Item B is discussion concerning the established annual goals for utilization of the city's minority, women, and disadvantaged business enterprise, MWDBE businesses as part of the objectives set forth in TMC 3.30.460B3.
City manager.
Thank you, Mayor. So during the last 3 years, the members of the City of Topeka's Program Review Committee have worked to develop a Program Review Committee regulation document. This document outlines the purpose, objectives, and goals related to the utilization and participation of minority business enterprises, women business enterprises, and disadvantaged business enterprises. In other words, the MWDBE. The Program Review Committee is responsible for establishing and presenting annual goals to the city manager for the utilization of the MWDBE businesses as part of the objectives set forth in the Topeka Municipal Code. The City Council shall consider the goals for the city's minority business enterprise, women business enterprise, and disadvantaged business enterprise utilization in conjunction with the annual setting of budget priorities. So tonight, we provided information, staff has, related to the programs and the goals that we would consider approval. You did tonight receive an amended document, which changes a number from the original document, and in the chart itself, there was, number was correct, but in the chart that we were provided, it was 45%, and the actual number is 41.017. So the number in the narrative was the same. We just had an error in when it was put into the table at the back on the second page. So this is presented information to you. This is obviously something that is important. We continue to strive by having lunch and learns and other activities to get as many people that have minority businesses, women businesses, or disadvantaged, disabled businesses to take the time to register with the city, become a vendor of the city. We want to utilize you where we can.
Thank you, City Manager. A lot of people may not know this, but when you and I first started working on this, Lazone was the one that approached me. And one of the big things was sending Lindy to supplier diversity training so that she was able to just keep this and take the ball and run. And then, of course, with Councilwoman Valdivia Alcala's advocacy and work with Lazone, we're seeing much more happening in this realm in the community. So thank you for being open for this. I really appreciate this. It just means a lot. And Lazone, thanks for the push, as usual. Questions? Seeing none, Councilman Duncan.
I don't know if anyone knows the answer to this at the moment, but I know there are various federal grant programs that have requirements. Are these goals consistent with those federal rules? I mean, do we look at those comparatives and see if we're...
Leah Bowling, our Contracts and Procurement
Not Lindy, Leah,
Director,
sorry.
will help with that.
Good evening, governing body, mayor-elect and mayor. Yes, they are. However, those contracts themselves have individual goals outside of these. So these will be in conjunction as they'll represent through the award process. But generally, when we award, say, an RFP to a consultant firm for a project that has federal funding behind it, they are required, that primary consultant is required to utilize these businesses as a sub-portion of the project outlined by the federal mandates.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilman Emerson, you had a question.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I believe, I guess a question, I don't know, maybe for purchasing or for finance, but I think these are just prime contract awards, right? They don't take into account the use of WB or MBE subcontractors, correct?
Yes, we do.
That is correct. Our primary contractors are the ones that are reflected in these numbers.
And I guess I'd just like to give a data point. We're currently doing a job that's about a $500,000 job fully about a quarter of that job is going to a minority business here in town who does fantastic work for us. So I guess, when you look at the numbers here, they don't fully reflect what's actually happening, I guess.
So that's correct. With the bidding system that we currently use, and I'm not familiar with another bidding system that's available, but our system captures our primary contractors, and when you submit your bid, as some of you know, you have to complete our document 330, which outlines your subcontractors and also your suppliers. And we review that to make sure it's within our policy before we award that bid to the primary.
Yes, and just to be clear, my point wasn't that you guys are missing something. It's just that the news is actually better than what your report even shows. So, Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Hiller.
Thank you, Mayor. We had a little back and forth today, and maybe Leah could talk a little further. The way this reads, it appears that it's all projects that were bid out, and many of us know that there is a kind of a bid list and is negotiated work with many of the small contractors, which does pick up a number of our minority contractors. So if you could address whether that negotiated contract work, the small jobs, are included in these numbers.
Yes, I'd love to. And so what Councilwoman Hiller is referring to is the Exhibit A of the memo that was provided. And the numbers, the top 3 lines on that exhibit reference bid events. And then the 4th line, diverse vendor awards as a % of those bid events. Those numbers are a reflection of bid events and what happens in our bidding system. So when we talk the last 3 lines, those are purchase orders. So those encompass dollars paid to not only those smaller vendors that might not even participate in a bid event because they're under the bidding threshold, but that we just can purchase directly from. And so the bid dollars for awards are included in the overall dollars, but in those overall dollars are also the smaller vendors that are paid for smaller jobs outside of the bidding process.
Which means then that whatever that number is of total purchases or contracts is not reflected in the numbers at the top. They're in addition to.
Yeah, the numbers at the top are included with the numbers at the bottom. We don't have a way in our accounts payable system to differentiate between the two as to, in our bidding system, when we issue a bid award, it provides the overall bid award dollar amount. Mm-hmm. But when we all know that a construction job may have some various change orders, whether it's reduce the amount or increase the amount by the time the project's said and done, that number from that original bid will change. And so while we could provide numbers based on original bid awards, they wouldn't reflect the actual payments made to the vendors once the job's complete. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I know that this is emerging now. The issue is that there are a whole lot more than, let's say, in 2021, there are more than 150 transactions or contracts included in the $7.6 million because of those direct purchases and the direct contracts, right?
Yes, a purchase order constitutes as an agreement, so it's a contract, and that's the 7.6 million is a combined what we've paid in all to those diverse vendors.
Yeah. So everything that's above in the first 3 lines, plus all the other things that didn't hit those lines.
Yes.
How's that?
I'm sorry if I didn't say that. Yes.
We struggle with it a little bit today, and I just wanted everybody to realize that because I've been trying to figure out what the average transaction was. There are not a lot of big businesses at this point in Topeka that are getting big contracts, minority businesses that aren't. So there's just a lot of smaller contracts at this point.
I would have to look into the numbers further to know more about how that breaks out.
Okay.
I could attempt to do that for you. Right now, I could say off the top that is accurate.
And it doesn't bother me so much, except that I see that's a growth area for us. And so it's helpful when we get these reports to have an idea if that works out in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We move on to the next item. Leah, thank you so much for your presentation, and sorry for calling you Lindy. Both of you are wonderful. We now move on to the public comment portion of the evening. The first person signed up to speak is John Rush. I do not see Mr. Rush present. We move on to Ms. Deborah Hayes.
Right here. Okay. First, I want to talk to you about a yarn problem that our city plagued upon us for the past several years at 5112 Southwest 33rd Street. I want to know as to why this city believes fire hazard structures are okay and should never be dealt with. The reason why I ask is every structure built by Myron Holter was either connected or attached to other wood objects. Until Myron Holter learns how to build safe structures that are not attached to other structures or wood objects, then I suggest that you stop the attachments today, whether it's made out of wood or material. Mother Nature just took Myron's tent down a couple of days ago, and he has already made another new attachment to his home. I'm sorry, I'm kind of nervous.
It's okay, ma'am. Take your time.
But if Mother Nature is always taking them down, then right there should tell you that these are considered unsafe structures. So my question is here is, why are you allowing Myron Holter to build these attachments? How many more attachments or fire hazard structures are you going to allow this guy to build? Why does this guy have to build tents with his tarp when he could easily just cover them up with tarp? Why does the attachments and the Christmas lights under them continue on? Why does this madness continue on? I don't understand. Does anybody have any, can anybody answer my question?
Ms. Hayes, the public comment section of the evening is reserved for people to share with us their concerns. There is no back and forth to be happening between the council members, but we appreciate you coming over
Well,
here.
why does the attachments keep going on? I mean, they're fire hazard structures.
I appreciate, ma'am, your question, and I know that city manager and you probably have had conversations. This is not a time for the city council to go back and forth with the constituents. It's your time to share during 4 minutes what your concerns are for the council to listen.
Can I ask what can be done about this problem? And when will it be addressed?
Again, ma'am, thank you very much for your comments.
All right, fine.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for nothing.
You're welcome, ma'am. Have a wonderful
I hope you all
evening.
go to hell.
Be blessed. The next person speaking is Mr. Michael Bell, and he's online.
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, Mike, sure can.
Yeah, they've disabled my video, so you can't see me. I had originally signed up.
No, Mike, could you check to see if your camera is on? Because we did not disable your video.
Oh! What do you know? You get to see my craggly mug.
I love to see your
Hold on.
mug. There you go.
There we are.
Hi, Frank.
Okay.
He texted.
Hey, how's everybody going this evening? How's everything going? I had signed up to speak on behalf of the Dreams initiative, and I appreciate Mike Spatafor's comments and also, of course, Council Member Hiller's comments. We served on a citizen-driven committee, the Neighborhood Initiatives Work Group, that started meeting in August of 2020 and met pretty much every week through December of 2020 to come up with a new way, a new paradigm for the city to address issues specifically in low to moderate income neighborhoods. The process that we came up with, I think, addresses well the challenges that that those neighborhoods face. And of course, now we have, you know, when I got involved 25 years ago, we had 16 NIAs. We have 21 now, and so there are more challenges in more neighborhoods across our cities. So I think that the DREAMS program is set up well to try to help as many of those neighborhoods as we can. And it's my hope then, as we move forward, and I know the discussions will continue, that we also factor in the Affordable Housing Trust Fund and of course the funding that might be available for projects through Public Works. I did want to thank, well, before I get to that, I should point out the SORT program, Tennessee Town, was a SORT NIA from 2017 through 2019. And so we went through that process and we were able to target only half of a 16 square block NIA. And so that's, you know, that kind of, for me at least, points to some of the limitations about targeting and some, you know, we try to address that in the DREAMS program. I did want to thank again Karen and Mike, also Ann Marshall, Yvonne May, and Daryl Stewart, who are kind of our most recent members of the Neighborhood Initiatives Work Group, although a number of people came in and off that, that group during that time that we met in 2020. And so that would be my comment for the evening, and I'm glad that at least we're at the point where we're looking at a hybrid system where we have SORT and DREAMS. And I hope that we can continue to move forward with that, because I think DREAMS is the future for our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks for all you do. All right, with that, announcements. We don't have any announcements from the clerk this evening,
Yeah,
right?
correct. No meeting
No,
next
Mayor.
week.
City manager, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mayor. First thing I wanted to cover is a reminder for citizens that city offices will be closed December 24th, 27th, and 31st. My next item is I want to say publicly thank you to the mayor, the time working with her, to the governing body, the rest of the city council, an opportunity to work with you. Chief of staff came on not that long ago. Department directors, both those that have left and those that are currently here, and city employees. I want to thank them for the efforts that they did to work hard to support the efforts that I made while I was city manager. I want to thank the city partners that we have. We have many organizations that we work with, and the opportunity to work with them, and also the citizens that I've met in the time that I've been here. I've had the opportunity to get to know many people in this community, and it's been awesome. I wish all of you much success in your future endeavors as I go to a yet-to-be-named county in North Carolina for various reasons. They're not announced it yet. I want to thank you most of all for the opportunity to be your city manager for the last 4 years.
Thank you, Brent. Councilman Dobler.
Thank you, Mayor. Brent, I get to be the first to say thanks for everything you did. I've enjoyed working with you and getting to know you. And again, you've left your mark here. It may not be apparent right away, but there's lots of things, and I think we discussed some tonight that you had a hand in that's going to carry on for a long time. So, good job, Mayor. It's a little bit sad. We had a good time, I think, tonight, and it's a little bit sad that we can't continue that on. I wish you lots of luck in the future, and appreciate everything you've done for the city and for me. And then just like to say, have safe holidays, safe travels, and we'll see you after the first of the new year. Thank you.
Councilman Duncan.
There we go. Just a couple things, Mayor. First is just a reminder, I think the city put it out yesterday or today, we are going to have some budget committees that are going to meet early next year. They will be represented by citizens. We are all supposed to select some constituents from our districts, so I'm continuing to remind people in District 8, if you would like to participate in that process, I put some stuff out on social media, please reach out and we'll get you hooked up and integrate you into that process. COVID is still here. As I've always said from day one, I don't lecture anybody on what you should or shouldn't do. I will always glad to have a conversation about what I wish you would do. And that's about as far as that goes. And I'll tell you why I think vaccinations are good and masks are appropriate in certain situations. It also doesn't mean you can't get together with your family. But as I said here tonight, several people we know have contracted COVID, and it is back into some degrees. You look at the numbers. If you'll notice, and this happened last time, our sports leagues, in fact, I think tonight's KU game was canceled because of a COVID-related issue, and you saw the NFL move games. And what you saw a year ago was what happens in sporting leagues, then it tends to then hit the rest of us because they're closed communities doing work, and then we see those numbers extrapolated out into society. So I'm hoping that that's not the full case, but that's what we saw a year ago. And so just do the little things you can to protect yourself and your family. Brent, as everyone I'm sure will say and has been said, thank you for all your service. We got 2 years together. We did some good stuff, had some wonderful conversations, and you will be missed. To the mayor, I always laugh at people think we have a much different relationship than we do, and that's fine. I kind of like to play it up and feed into it and just
Let's make it public. I love Spencer Duncan and his wife Barbara.
Well, this is what
kids,
I said. I think I put on the card rivals, colleagues, friends. And what I tell folks is we don't hang out a lot. We're not best friends. But even though we disagree, we've always had a good relationship. These last 2 years have definitely been a good relationship. And I think the mayor knows if she's ever in need, she knows she can pick up the phone and call and vice versa. And even if we are fighting about something because we disagree on that issue, we know we'll hash that out and then we'll move on to be able to take care of each other. So I've appreciated the last 2 years. I think I've learned some things from you, that's the only time I'll admit that in public. But with that, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, everybody.
Councilman Lesser.
I'll share the same, some of the same sentiments. It's without question, the city of Topeka is in a better place today with you leaving mayor as well as you city manager than it was when you got here, and I've enjoyed working with you guys. I've appreciated the friendships that we've made, and it's not goodbye. See you later, and Brent, no two people will probably butcher a round of golf any worse than you and I do. So I'll look forward to a round of golf in North Carolina sometime when you announce where that's at, and we'll see if we can lose more balls than we did last time.
Cool.
Councilwoman Hiller.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, there are lots of things to say to each of you in terms of what you have contributed and what you've meant to us. I think of a top thing for you, Brent, is that, and this sounds kind of trite, that everyone really likes you. That's a wonderful trait that you brought to us, and that your smiling eyes right now, I mean, you've always been just super to be around, and sometimes it's hard to even measure what that means to a day or a meeting or whatever, but thank you for being you and for all that you've contributed. And Mayor, you have done so much, meant so much to so many. One of the things that stands out for me that I tell people about, I end up in conversations about this, is that you had set a goal of improving our visibility and our reputation around the country. That was, I can't say it was your top priority, but that was a top priority of yours. And so it did mean that you traveled and that you were active in the U.S. Conference of Mayors and with the institute that I always block on, the
Aspen Institute Accelerator for America.
Aspen, but also the one that you connected nationally with.
Bloomberg Harbor City Leadership.
That one too. The foundation, you know, that you got Mike into the various, you really connected us and represented us well all over the country, particularly with those networks. And you did bring back consultation for us, opportunities for people from here to be part of some of those experiences, and not first, but not unimportantly, money to us, and that legacy will last us indefinitely and is invaluable. So thank you for that.
Thank
and
you.
Everything else that you did. And happy holidays to everyone. Be careful. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Councilwoman Ortiz.
Valdivia Alcala.
Oh, Valdivia Alcala. I can't
Thank
see the
you,
screen.
Mayor.
There you go.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to say best wishes to you, Mayor, as well as to City Manager Trout. Hope that you have success in all your future endeavors and blessings to your family as well. Also wanted to say a very happy and blessed winter solstice today. Today is the first day of winter, when we kind of go into that place of rest and waiting for the sun's movement to turn back and we wait in quiet and reflection, right, for spring to come. Also, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everyone. This has just been a rocky 2 years, right? Not only locally, but across the country. And I would just say that we all just need to keep leaning in. We need to be so thankful for the family and friends that we have, for the community that we have, and to remember that there's always hope, even during this time when there's a lot of loneliness in the community and across the country. So wish all my colleagues Merry Christmas and Happy New Year's as well. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilwoman Ortiz.
Thank you. To the city manager, I wanted to say to you, I appreciate your commitment to the end. You were steadfast on that, and you held the course, and you're still holding the course, and I wish you and your wife, Kelly, the best of luck. And don't forget, there's no place like home, and home is the heartland here. So good luck to you. To the mayor, I want to say thank you. It's been a pleasure serving with you. Thank you for caring about Topeka and caring about the people. That's what I heard a lot of the people, they enjoyed that caring part, that you took time to do that. And I'm kind of jealous of your little plaque from the kids at school, so that just means I have to work my butt off harder to get them to do something. Want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And I also want to remind Mr. Emerson that I have a 9-year-old that is waiting on Santa to bring him a plane. So hopefully that'll be on track.
Councilman Henderson for the last time. Antonio Henderson for you.
That's, boy, a plane. That's nice. Sound like my kid. Yeah. To Brent, I wanted to thank you. I mean, it's already been said. I mean, there's nothing I can add, but somebody once asked me, they said, how is Brent as a person? I said, he's just the most honorable guy and the hardest working guy. And I truly believe, and I'll put myself in this, if I worked half as hard as you do on behalf of the city, we probably wouldn't have any problems in District 4. So I really appreciate it. You worked your butt off over the last 4 or 5 years. Yeah, well, thank you. So thank you for all that. And our loss is definitely North Carolina's gain. So I look forward to reading about you in the newspapers out there. Hopefully nothing bad, but good stuff in the newspapers. And to Mayor Michelle, you know, I'll never forget the first time I met you was the night that I came and interviewed for the position, and you, I think, along with Karen and Sylvia, voted for me, and I know you guys have been regretting that now for about 5.5 years. But you know, it's been truly an honor. you sat on one side of me for the first 2 years, and now for the last first year and a half, and now for the last 4 or 5, you sat on the other side of me, and it's, you know, we've had so much fun. We don't, and I think people see this from the, you know, people. It's obvious that all of us aren't in agreement all the time, but you know what? We all, every one of us wants what's best for Topeka, and even when we disagree, I know that's what everyone wants, and it's been such an honor working alongside you. So I wish you luck. The Draper Richards Kaplan Foundation, I wrote that down so I wouldn't get it, is in great hands with you, Michelle. It's been an honor. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor-elect.
Thank you, Mayor. It's kind of hard to follow all of those comments because I think you've covered just about everything.
You don't have to go last.
I know. That's a tough spot to be in. I do want to say to the city manager, to Brent Trout, I'm glad that we had the opportunity to work together. You and I became pretty good friends.
Yes.
And to restate what was said before, I couldn't find a person that I ran into while serving on the council that had anything bad to say about you. They all praised your professionalism, your personality, your friendliness, your willingness to do more than they asked. They said that you were one of the best representatives they have ever met as a city manager for the city of Topeka. And that's something that you should take with you with a lot of pride. Because I believe that where you end up, we'll get the same opportunity to get to know you, and that you will be their ambassador as you have been for the city of Topeka. And so I appreciate everything that you've done for us. I know that you were a part of that team when Mayor Michelle came in with you as well. That were some tough times. And the two of you worked through that and really provided leadership to the city of Topeka that we have to acknowledge was extremely rare under those conditions. It'd been easy to go the other way and make the wrong step, but both of you worked so well together. It really was an advantage that you came together when you did. And Mayor, you and I both know, and we've made it quite clear that we're personal friends, but professionally I respect you as well. You and I have bounced issues back and forth to each other. Sometimes we agree, sometimes we don't. But we agree to be respectful of each other's opinion. And I think that's the thing that I have seen as a council member over the last 4 years, as this entire body has been a pleasure to work with. They're respectful to each other, and I think you help set that tone for all of us, and I really appreciate that because I think that's how things get done. Leadership doesn't mean you're at the front of the line all the time, but you're there to help that line get down the road. And so for that, I know that we will be looking at things still in the future and say, well, Mayor Michelle had a part of that. Mayor Michelle was involved with that. And I think that's the legacy that you will have forever, is that you have made an imprint on this community, and that imprint has been so positive that we are so grateful for having had the time to serve with you. I wish you well. I know you'll do well. I have no doubt in my mind You'll probably come back as the president of that company. But I know you'll do well wherever you end up. And I wish you, your lovely daughters, success in everything that they do, and a safe and happy and Merry Christmas. And I wish the same to the rest of the governing body, because it's a tough time. I remember when we came into 2021, everybody took a big breath and said, wow, we're done with 2020. And I said, wait a minute, it's not over yet. And unfortunately, I was accurate, because we still have a lot to do. But I am so confident that this, as you said earlier today in your press release, the city is in good shape. All it takes now is for the rest of us to keep moving forward and keep it in good shape. And that'll be part of your legacy as well. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Councilwoman Nager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Brenda Michelle, I'm going to read from what I have typed because you have both done absolutely fantastic work under absolutely incredible circumstances. These last 2 years have been, to use the most tired but the most appropriate word, unprecedented times. City Manager, thank you for all of your help and guidance on the non-discrimination ordinance that started in the HRC and then was passed last year by our governing body. Mayor, thank you for being such an incredible example to our community of respect, compassion, and action. Good luck as you both embark on your new leadership opportunities, because just because you're done being official leaders here, your mark is made here, and it's in your blood. You're going to continue doing it. I also want to express my thanks to the owners of Josie's Baking Company, Joe and Lindsay. They have made the very difficult decision to close their very successful bakery and spend more time on their family. That is an incredibly hard and harrowing decision to make. And it's a loss for District 6 and for the city of Topeka, but I really appreciate everything that they and their business brought to our community, and I know it's not going to be the last thing that they give to the world. I also want to say thank you to Evergy. Those linemen were working nonstop for days on end. I personally was nearing on over 48 hours without power and reached out to Evergy and just as a customer, saying, I have no idea what to do. I can smell the cheese going bad in my refrigerator. What's the next step? And I wish I knew her last name, but Teresa was so helpful. Helped me to identify, as a dentist, what was going on with the power lines, and we had power within the next hour. And I am just so grateful, and everybody on my block is so grateful because that was done. And I know that that's just one of thousands of stories from the last week after that storm. So I just wanted to say thank you to them. To everyone, happy holidays, be safe, and stay healthy. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, here it goes, guys, last time. So I'll do a filibuster and keep us here till 10 o'clock. Before I say anything, I want to recognize somebody that's in the chambers that's very special to me. One of my two Topeka dads, Walt Menninger, is here. I'm sure that it was probably very interesting for you to hear as we were talking about the Menninger Tower. So thank you for being here tonight. I had several people that came here. Thank you. To my daughters, again, I've said that 2 times again, but I will continue saying it. Thank you. Thank you to my girls for, I wouldn't say putting up, but when you're a kid, you put up with stuff, right? Because you don't understand when your mom is sitting down having dinner and somebody comes and wants to ask a question, or when we're at the grocery store, or when they're at school, the things that they have to deal with sometimes. So just kids, thank you. And Eric is not here, but Eric, thank you, because you were part of my council run too. To the citizens of this community, I want to say thank you for trusting in me. Both those of you who voted for me and those of you who voted for Spencer. You got what you wanted. Both of us are on the council. And believe it or not, like Spencer said, I mean, our relationship has been absolutely beautiful. It's just been a delight. And I will say this publicly now, and I'll say it often, to watch you do policy. You are a hard-working man. So thank you for what you do. And to our city that voted for us, I mean, both during the time of me Spencer and I running for mayor, thank you for giving me a chance. I am sure that, you know, a big issue was I was employed. Could I make this happen? Yep. I didn't sleep a lot, but yeah, I've made it happen. Which means that, like I said earlier today in the press conference, it shows that this seat is not just for a person who is retired. Typically, it's been Caucasian males, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it also means that brown women who were homeless that have a job can do this job. It means that kids that lived in Oakland who used to drive around neighborhoods that they could not think they could afford could actually be the mayor. It means that if you have to work 2 jobs, you could make it happen. And yeah, the balance sometimes is not going to be perfect, but I assure you it all comes out in the wash. Because Lord knows that, yeah, I was sick. And yes, I had to take meetings off outside of Topeka. But nobody was complaining when we were dealing with COVID, right? It happens. So thank you for trusting that I could do it. It's been a humbling honor to serve all of you. And remember that as we think about the things that are happening in our community, what happens in this meeting is just a few hours in the week, right? We are your representatives. You as citizens are all the leaders. You are the ones that help our community be the community that it is. It's not up to the police department to avoid crime. It's up to each of us to care about the kids in our neighborhood, about the kids in all of our schools, if they're hungry, if they need something, so that they don't ever think that they have to resort to violence. It's up to all of us to care about the neighbor that may be having a really rough time right now because it's the holiday. And for us to say, hey, why don't you come over? You know, COVID is bad. Maybe don't come over. Send them a meal, right? Just make somebody cookies. It's when we start reclaiming the fact that we are all humans, that we are all Americans above all the other divisions that we have in our country, that we can actually have a city that we are proud of. And we've come a long way in the last 4 years to do just that. To the council members, thank you. It hasn't always been easy. But for the most part, it has been civil. For the most part, for a very, very big part of this, it has been, Tony's laughing, he knows what we're talking about. For the most part, it's been a beautiful experience, but there have been very challenging days. Don't allow your passions to get in between the civility that runs this body. It's not worth it. You know, at the end of the day, we get upset at each other, we have a beer. Let's just have a beer, right? Because in the end, all of us are here trying to do what's best for our community. Don't lead with I, which is something that we try to do here very much so. We're a team. And everything that's happened in this community is not because one of us independently made it happen. It's because we were able to use our leadership and our ability to bring other people together alongside with us to help make things happen. To our community that's listening right now, I have to talk about the virus just because of 2 quick things. I see that my lipstick is all over the place. Sorry for that. I know one person that was fully vaccinated and ended up with the virus, and that individual, I care very much about them. They're doing better now, but it was rough for them. This week, I received news of another person that I very much love, who also got the virus, and by virtue of that, their grandbaby now has the virus. It's a baby that can't get vaccinated. And those are the stakes. Those are the stakes. It's a baby that I adore. So just take care of yourselves. Like I've said before, I'm not telling you what to do. Talk to your doctor and ask your doctor what's right for you. But if you can, wear this. And if you can, just stay home. And then finally, I want to wrap up the same way that I started. If you recall, Annette Hope Billings, on my first meeting, read a poem. And I want to reread that poem for all of you to remember as you are all leading in your space and at home, because you're all leaders, so that just when things get tense, always remember this. What you allow lingers. What you allow lingers. What you invite stays put. So speak rudely to discourse and its sullen sisters, and turn a cold shoulder to bigotry in all of its disguises. Ignore the bell of jealousy when it rings. Stop violence at the door like a stranger. Usher in joy like a long-lost friend. Take its coat, its hat. Entertain peace. Chat up passion. Pamper generosity. Give the guest room to justice. Make your life poorly suited for anything but goodness. Sweep the porch and place a welcome mat for love. And when hate knocks, act like you don't live there. You, Brent, exemplified that. Thank you for your leadership. I love you all. And with that, we go into an executive session. If the city attorney could read the parameters.
The motion would be to recess into executive session not to exceed 30 minutes to discuss a contract pursuant to considering a matter that would be considered privileged under the attorney-client relationship pursuant to KSA 754319B2. The open meeting will resume in the City Council chambers. The following staff may be needed to assist the governing body in its deliberations: City Attorney Stanley, HR Director Russell, and Senior Assistant City Attorney Kuppelman.
We've heard the parameters. What is the pleasure of the governing body? Mayor-elect makes a motion. Do we have a second? Second by Councilwoman Nager. All those opposed? Seeing no opposition, we will allow a minute or two for the room to clear, and we will resume the executive session in a minute.
In like 10 minutes, right?
All right, thank you very much for your patience. At this point in time, no action has been taken by the governing body. We did have an extension in our time because we were waiting because of some technical difficulties to start the meeting. So we are adjourning the first executive session. No action has been taken. We do have to pause for a minute and then come back into, we have to come into a second executive session. If the city attorney could please read the parameters.
The motion would be to recess into executive session not to exceed 30 minutes to discuss matters related to an individual employee pursuant to KSA 754319B1. The open meeting will resume in the City Council chambers. The following staff may be needed to assist the governing body in its deliberations: Chief of Staff Cochran, HR Director Russell, City Attorney Stanley, and Senior Assistant City Attorney Kuckelman.
All right, we have heard the parameters. Councilman Dobler moves. Do we have a second? Councilwoman Nager seconds. At this point in time, all those opposed into entering executive session? Nobody opposes. The motion carries unanimously. We now enter into the executive session not to exceed 30 minutes. Good evening. Executive session has ended. No action has been taken. However, before we adjourn the meeting, we are waiting for a document, and we will have one more item for approval. In that time, we will put a small recess, so hang tight with us, and we should be ready to re-engage in the meeting soon. Thank you. Good evening. We're back from our short break, and at this point in time, I'm going to ask the city attorney to read a proposed motion that we have for final action this evening.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The motion would be to approve an employment agreement with William Cochran and the city of Topeka. The employment agreement would appoint him as interim city manager and is available under the Kansas Open Records Act.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have the language for a motion? Do we have somebody that's willing to make such motion? Motion made by Councilwoman Nager, seconded by Councilman Dobler. Comments or questions? Seeing none, we proceed by voting.
I got the roll call. Ortiz.
She says yes.
Emerson.
Yes.
Padilla.
Yes.
Nager.
Yes.
Dobler.
Yes.
Duncan.
Yes.
Lesser.
Yes.
Mayor De La Isla.
Yes.
Hiller.
Yes.
Baldini Alcala.
No.
9 voting in favor, 1 opposed. The motion passes.
Okay, with that, there is no other items in front of the governing body. Have a wonderful holiday season. Be blessed. Good evening. This meeting is adjourned.